Welcome to LawNext. This is Bob Ambrogi. Today on LawNext, we're going to do something a little bit different in that we're going to have a two-part episode on how a law school is teaching technology to its students. And the reason it's two parts is because there is going to be a pre-pandemic and post-pandemic part to our interview. Let me explain. Back on March 12th of 2020, I was at BYU Law School, where I interviewed Sean Nevers, the Deputy Director of the Howard W. Hunter Law Library at BYU Law, and Tina Wilder, the Assistant Librarian whose job it is to oversee legal technology training at the school. And of course, our topic was how the school teaches students about legal technology. Well, as it happened, March 12th was the very day the school made the decision to close down physical classes because of the coronavirus crisis, go virtual, send students home. And so, needless to say, almost everything we talked about that day became moot in a sense, in that there weren't going to be live classes, there wasn't going to be live instruction, and even some of the labs and whatever that we talked about, it was questionable as to whether they would continue. So recently I caught up with Sean and Tina for an update on the topics that we covered in that initial interview to find out how they've adjusted, how the school has adjusted, and how the students have adjusted, and what that looks like now. So in the first part of this interview, you're going to hear the part that we recorded on March 12th. And then at the end, we're going to have an addendum in which Sean and Tina bring us up to date on where they are now as of the beginning of July 2020. This is LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. I am Bob Ambrogi, and let's get to that episode. Well, let me welcome our guest, Sean. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having us.
And Tina, welcome to you.
Thank you so much.
And Sean, I briefly introduced you there, but why don't you just tell me a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm the Deputy Director at the Law Library. I've been the Deputy Director for the last 4 years or so, and I've been here for the last 13 years. I started working with electronic resources. I teach legal research. And nowadays, I'm focused a lot on the administration of the Law Library and focus on this technology training program. So I love it here. Our students are great. Our faculty are great, and just excited for the things that we're doing.
And Tina, how about you?
So I'm over the legal technology trainings. And so that means that, Bob, I have you to thank for my job. And it's been awesome. I basically help schedule and facilitate the legal tech trainings for our law students. And I've really enjoyed it. It's been great.
That deserves some explaining in terms of how you have me to thank for your job. But I guess we can get into that a little bit. We'll get to today's interview in just a moment. But first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support LawNext. And now, on to this week's interview. As anybody who reads my blog or listens to this podcast at all knows that I have a strong interest in the duty of technology competence and the issues around that. And so what we're going to talk about today is an initiative you've undertaken here at BYU Law to help law students become more competent in technology, right? So how did it come to be that you decided to undertake that initiative? Sean?
Yeah, well, we, several years ago, Dean Gordon Smith, he's never one to shy away from innovations or anything that's new if it's going to be beneficial to the library and to the law school.
Dean Smith has been on this podcast, I should say, in the past as well.
That's right. And he loves our law students and wants to try new things. When he first came to BYU, he right away started this Future of Law series that brought in lots of people that were interested in the area of technology and kind of where the law was going. People like Margaret Hagan, Oliver Goodenough, Andy Perlman, Ed Walters, and others. And we learned a lot from those speakers, and our students were really getting involved and interested in technology. And one of those speakers we had was you, Bob, and that was late in 2017. And your talk was about the duty of technology competency. And after that talk that you gave, Dean and I started talking about how we could potentially help our students to become more technologically competent. And we had quite a few conversations, and we thought that this would be a great time to really focus on how to get them to that point. And what was that point, and how could we help with that? And so The library's always been interested in technology, and I've been interested in that in my career, starting with legal research. There's, obviously focused on kind of the changes that are coming to legal research and technology. And so I started doing some research, and we got interested in the legal technology assessment, which Casey Flaherty and Procertus had for schools and for firms that tested technology skills in Word and Adobe and Excel. And we thought that would be a good starting place for our students to kind of take those online trainings and kind of try to test those competencies that they had.
So was this in the 2018 and 2019 school year?
Yeah, so that was the beginning of the end of the 2017-18 school year. We kind of rolled that out to students, and they started doing that a little bit over the summers.
Yeah.
And then one of the things we decided was that it was great for them to do that online training, but we also thought in-person training would be a good thing to do as well, to help with some of the different learning styles, as well as cover some of the things that the LTA didn't cover. So, they covered some basic things, really focused on kind of corporate or in-house practice.
Yeah.
But we wanted to also find things that were applicable to litigation. I mean, a lot of the skills were applicable to litigation, but in addition to things like tables of contents, tables of authorities, and Bates numbering, those kind of things. And so in the 2019-2020 school year, back that up, it was 2018-2019 school year, we started to do these trainings in the middle of the school year. Once a week, usually we would have some kind of training focused on these different softwares.
Yeah. And Tina, you joined the school, you were just telling me, in July, about 9 months ago or so. And what is your role in all of this?
Yeah, so I started in July of last year. My role has kind of been to further develop the program that Sean and Dean Smith started, and to sort of take it to the next step. So now we have our tech trainings. When we started in the fall semester, we were literally started off having 3 tech trainings a week, and the classes were packed. So it's been really good to kind of see how much it could grow. And we had Microsoft Word, Adobe, and Excel last semester. And we just basically spend 50 minutes with the students trying to give them context and help them understand when they would use the different tasks on the LTA. And then we've had, I think, about 80 students take and pass the LTA exam this year. So that's been really good. And then we also developed new courses for this semester, a bunch of brand new curriculum. And it's been really fun to sort of be a part of that.
What was your background that got you interested in teaching technology to law students?
Yeah, so I was actually a solo practitioner, and my husband is a solo attorney as well. And so we use technology in a lot of our law practice. I think it's the way that you can get a lot done if you're on your own. And so that was kind of how I developed those skills. And then I was looking at going to get further skills as a law librarian, and I kind of reached out to Sean Nevers, and he told me about this technology training going on at the law school, and that they were looking for somebody with practice experience to come in and teach skills that would be really beneficial to the students, give them some firsthand practice, and really try to get them practice ready so that when they walk out from these doors of our law school, they'll really be attorneys that can contribute and do really well and be successful.
Yeah. So you were probably a case study of somebody who comes out of law school and did you go to law school here?
Yes, I
did. You went to law school here.
Yes.
And so, I mean, how equipped were you for a solo practice at the point that I don't know if you went right into solo practice out of law school, but what was it like for you as a law student going into practice to have to learn about technology and start to use that in your practice?
Yeah, I had some experience with it. And then also that's sort of what my husband did. And he graduated like 2 years before me. So I had kind of seen him go through the same process. And I think that really helped was just looking for the types of technology that make you efficient and that really help your law firm run smoothly. And that was like what was gold for me. And so I try to take those tips and those tricks that I learned along the way and just bring those to the students here.
Yeah. Sean, I mean, as you said, this all started from this premise of preparing the students to be competent in technology.
Right.
What does that mean to you? What does it mean for a student to, how do you evaluate what it means to be competent in technology? What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question. And I think overall hasn't been settled. I mean, I think the rule in some ways is kind of meaningfully, it is vague, right? And probably purposefully so. But we are trying to kind of get them at the level, I think, where they can go in and kind of provide, the rule says that you must understand the risks and benefits of technology.
Right.
And that will be different for every single one of them. So we're trying to expose them to a lot of different things so they can understand how to evaluate technologies in addition to using some of the basic things they use every day, like the Office suite and those kind of things that are the legal technology assessment is in. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's, the focusing on the risks and benefits and evaluating technologies. Things are always going to be changing and they have to know how to evaluate those things. And I think that's one of the reasons why this is kind of a good fit in the law library, because law librarians have been doing this for years, right? With vendors and others. We don't just kind of take what they say as gospel truth, but we really are kind of digging down deep and understanding some of those benefits and risks. And so we're really trying to pass along those skills to the law students. Now, Tina's done a good job of kind of looking around and kind of trying to determine what are some of the areas we feel like they must know, in addition to the Word and the Adobe and Excel. And there's things like e-discovery and other things that she's kind of examined. Might be able to talk a little bit more about those. But
yeah, sure. Yeah, a lot of thought went into the curriculum for this semester, and we really tried to look out what's out there, what do students really need to know going into law practice. And we looked at a few different sources. We did look at your blog where you posted I think it's the Adirant top 10 tech tools that attorneys use. Mm-hmm. We looked at that. I also serve on the State Bar Innovation Committee. They are looking at like this article by the National Jurist that really highlights 6 different facets of being tech competent. And those include like e-discovery, leveraging technology to deliver legal services, being able to use the internet effectively in conducting searches, and cybersecurity and safeguarding client information. And then there were a couple more as well, I think. Just understanding how technology is used by clients to offer those services and to build technology that really serves the client. And then using technology in the courtroom. And so we really took like those 2 different sources and really tried to think through it when we were choosing what classes to offer this semester.
So did you say you're offering 3 classes this semester?
No, so we actually are offering, I think it's been about 9 different classes that we have going on that are all new content.
All related to technology?
Mm-hmm. Technology and the law.
So what are some of those? Can you give me some examples?
Yeah. So we started off the semester with case management. We practiced case management software. We also kind of talked about like workflows and how to map out your workflows and the way that you might actually manage a case. And then we used that as a segue into case management software. And we highlighted a few different types of case management software for the students so that when they go out into practice, they'll at least have some sort of context for it and maybe even a feel for what they would look for in their own case management software if they were choosing it for their firm.
Do you teach on specific products? I mean, do you get one of the case management providers to come in and somehow?
Yeah, so we did Clio this semester, and then we also asked Filevine to come down.
Which is right down the street.
Exactly. It's right around the corner, yeah. And they were awesome. It was excellent to work with them. And they have a lot of new features that not a lot of other case management softwares have. So it was kind of fun to expose the students to a couple of different providers. And then we also taught document automation, which was fun. And we did use the Clio platform for that. We taught them how to like insert a merge field and create a template that they could upload in Clio and then generate documents on the case management system. And so I think that was a good experience for students just to see how it works and different ways that they can make their office more efficient.
Yeah. Do these vendors cooperate with you at all in doing this? I mean, did they make their products available? Do they provide any of their own training or staff or anything to help with this? Or?
Yeah, sure. So for Filevine, they came down for that.
Yeah.
So they sent us to 2 representatives to help out. And then with Clio, they actually donate the license for Clio. So we're able to use it. And then I just taught the Clio ones myself. Yeah. But it is nice.
Yeah. So that was practice management. Can you give me an example of a couple of the other ones that you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. We actually just got out of computer science for lawyers. We invited a professor down to basically talk for an hour about computer science topics that attorneys would encounter. And we also did accounting for lawyers, which was sort of more of like some advanced Excel skills. That was really kind of a hybrid of like a student wanted to know more about building financial models. And we just thought this is a good way to enhance Excel skills. And so we had somebody come down and show that to the students, and it was great. We're also going to be doing trial presentation software, document management, and e-discovery, and then we'll do a small class on e-filing as well.
That's really great. Are these all 4 credit courses?
No,
Not
these
4,
are...
I mean 4 number 4. I mean 4
yes.
credit.
Yeah, so these are actually all optional.
These are all optional. So they're no credit.
No credit. Students
And so
come in
how
over
do
lunch.
students respond to this?
Yeah, I think it's been great. I don't know if Sean has any feedback as well, but
Yeah, no, the students have been really excited about it. I mean, it's that was one of my worries at first when we were doing this. If it wasn't for credit, would they come? But they've been coming and they've been excited about it. I mean, I think that they see that this is an important aspect of their practice, and they want to know as much as they can. Now, there's some time limitations. We probably don't get everybody, but I've actually been really happy with how excited they've been about these additional offerings to add to what they have.
Do you have any sense of what percentage of the law students have taken any or all of these courses?
I remember the first year we did about 20 of these classes, and we had 350 students total. I mean, we probably had about half of the students that were coming to the classes. Yeah. And that's always been one of the thoughts about, maybe at some point we'll do a 4-credit class. But one of the things that we really want was to have, if you do a 4-credit class, then a lot of times you get a fewer number of students that are involved in that. You can go a little deeper, which might be a good thing for us to do at some point. But we like the chance to get more students involved in it. And so for now, this has been working for us. Yeah.
You mentioned you had written an article, I think last year, about this program where you mentioned in there one student who I think, if I recall right, said that he was coming back to law school after a few years out of college and was a little bit worried about the technology issues.
Yeah, that's right. Some of our non-traditional students, there's been one in particular I know was really excited about this because they had been out of the workforce for a while and not in school for quite a while. And so this was an exciting thing for them. We actually have, and one of the things that I did when I kind of started this before we got Tina, I was kind of doing this almost as a second job, an extra responsibility. Our main library does a lot of classes in Word and Excel and other things. And so I kind of partnered with them and they tailored some curriculum to law students. And so they were able to come in and to teach some of those things and have some more of that expertise, which was great.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's different tiers to this. I mean, you've got the legal technology assessment from ProCertis. And I'm not sure everybody listening would even know what that is. Could you just give me the quick nutshell of what that is?
Sure. So this was a couple of years ago. Casey Flaherty was writing about how, as the legal counsel for Kia Motors, was concerned that attorneys in the firms that they were working with were spending a lot of time doing things that could be automated through Word and Excel and other things. And so he created his legal tech audit, and many of the lawyers did poorly in that. And he wrote about that, how he had certain
big firm
standards.
lawyers lawyers at big firms were failing poorly on that test.
That's right. So it was costing them a lot of money. And so he took that and created what he calls now the legal technology assessment, and his company ProCertis now sells that, and law schools can subscribe to it. And so it's a number of modules with these online training modules, and then there's a test at the end, and it goes through these different things that you should know as a lawyer of how to, some of them are really basic, find and replace, those kind of things, but other things like styles and, pivot tables in Excel and those kind of things, scrubbing metadata in PDFs.
Redaction.
The redaction, definitely.
which lawyers still get wrong all the time.
That's right. We see that a lot in your blog, I think, these examples. And so the students go through these. I think each one has about 12 or 13 modules they can go through, and then they can actually test and get a certification and online badge that says that they're certified in the legal technology assessment.
And that's interesting because that's really kind of rudimentary stuff. I mean, it's not a legal technology per se. It's just basic using Office and PDF and Word and Excel, right?
That's right.
It's stuff that pretty much you would think anybody maybe getting out of college at this point might want to know. So that's one level of it. And is that something they just kind of do on their own, or is there a course or something around that? Something that happens here at the law school around that, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it can be both. So we allow them to do it on their own if they want. And then some of our training classes track some of the things in the legal technology assessments. If they want to come and learn it live, then they can do that and then take the assessment on their own instead of going through the videos.
Yeah. And then you've got the courses that you were just talking about that you're offering. And those are those like an hour each or something, or how does that work?
So they're 50-minute classes. So the students come in over their lunch hour. They have about 50 minutes, and we just try to just meet them where they are and give them good information. And it's been really good. I think today's one was really fascinating. We had a computer science professor come down and basically do a 1-hour discussion about the internet, and students were staying after because they were so intrigued. So I think it's really been a great experience to just expose them to all these different things that they might run into in law practice.
Yeah. Then is there another aspect that's the online learning for other kinds of computer skills? Is that right?
Yeah, so there's about a year and a half ago, we realized that we weren't going to be able to go into the depth that we wanted to for some students and cover the breadth also of things. There's just not enough time to do all that. And so there's a company called Pluralsight that actually is based here in Utah that the university was looking at getting a subscription to Pluralsight, and they provide online technology training, and many companies use this, and you can do all kinds of things on there, learn about cybersecurity, coding, Python, these different things that you can learn, these different tools. And so we decided it would be great to get a subscription to that. So we kind of hopped on that subscription and offered that to our students as, if you're interested in going deeper in these different aspects, then you could get on your Pluralsight account and do as much as you want. They have thousands of training videos. I was just looking at one last night. There was a basic one about understanding machine learning, which some lawyers may want to just look at and have some familiarity with. You can go very in depth. We had one student that as soon as we got this Pluralsight subscription, she came up to me and said, "Oh, this is so great because I'm working for a firm. I want to get involved in patent prosecution. They told me I should learn more about computer science. And I've kind of been going around trying to figure out how I would do that. And this came in my inbox and I can go on now and do all these trainings." And so for her, for most students, they might want to not get that in depth, but for her, it was a perfect fit. And so we have these optional online trainings that really supplement what we're doing in the courses and with the LTA.
Is that it? Is there any other components to the training that we haven't talked about?
Not yet. I mean, we have lots of ideas. I mean, that's one of the
that's
things.
My next question is, so what do you still want to do?
And Tina can talk about this. I mean, one of the things that even this year, so last year, I kind of started this as part of my job, but there wasn't enough time for me to do everything. And so we were so grateful to get this position of Tina's, which is a kind of a unique position for us, a legal technology librarian, that she could kind of continue on the things that I had some ideas with, which were some more of these classes. And then we have some other ideas kind of going forward. I don't know, Tina, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, we are thinking about building modules for the students just so that we can kind of reach more students and meet a lot more schedules. So we're thinking about building online modules, and those might come in actually really handy right now, the coronavirus.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. So
we are recording this on the day that the law school is considering going to all online classes. So
yeah, so we're thinking about building some modules, and then also we were going to put in an innovation lab right here in the law library, just make a really beautiful collaborative space for students where they could go and just enhance their skills, get more time to practice the things that we're covering in the tech trainings, and really make sure that they have it locked down so that they feel comfortable performing the different tasks. And we were kind of going back and forth, and I feel like we really felt like practice and just giving students the ability to practice these skills is really what helps them feel like they are competent at these different legal tech platforms.
Yeah, we really, I mean, as you know, Bob, you've written about this, but with the LawNext program here, I mean, Dean Smith is really focused on kind of also trying to build things, right, and help people. And we would like the culture here to be that. And we hope this innovation lab might be a place where we can build more things in addition to just kind of training them. We, Ed Walters came out, we talked a little about his AI sandbox, and we've recently subscribed to that. So we're going to have our students kind of working in some of those areas as well, which I think is really hopefully will be a beneficial thing for them to get their hands on and practice some of those things before they go out. Yeah.
Are you seeing students come into these programs talking about not careers in law, but careers in tech in some way? Are you seeing law students thinking more about, I want to create software or create products or something?
Yeah, we are. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but we do have always a good handful of people that are very interested in kind of being in the tech space and being more creators in that side of things and entrepreneurs rather than maybe just practicing law.
I mean, I know of some have come through the LawNext program.
That's right.
We're out there right now building.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also students have, ideas of becoming a partner at a large law firm. I think having these more business of law focused skills and being able to kind of see the legal operations side of the law firm practice is always helpful in that route as well. And then also we had the global hackathon here last weekend, and it was really fun. We had the top 3 teams. They were awesome, and they all had businesses where the judges were kind of you could take these and run with these if you really wanted to. Really? And so I think that there is, I think the startup culture here is growing.
Yeah. Is there one of the debates you occasionally see surface on Twitter or elsewhere is this question of whether lawyers, to be equipped for the law practice in the 21st century should know something about coding. Do either of you have an opinion on that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, one of the things, we didn't talk about this class, but we have an alum who started this nonprofit called Code 180, which is like a 3-hour introduction to coding class that we
law school alum?
Yeah, law school alum that was practicing at a firm and now is just running this full time. But he has come and done that every semester so far for our students. And I think it's important for law students to understand something of coding. I mean, I don't know that at this point lawyers have to be coders to be able to practice. Maybe it will get to that point, but I think it's important for them to have exposure to this, especially just the way that we are going with all the tech, and they may have clients that are involved in this as well. And so having some understanding of these principles and these words and what they mean and what it can do, I think is important. I don't know that I'd go so far yet to say that all lawyers have to learn coding or we should have a class for every lawyer that gets into that.
Tina, you were much more emphatic.
I'm like, I'll go that far. I'm willing to go that far. Yeah. If Keith Picaro is listening to this, he's my idol. They built something that was like a risk assessment tool for whether or not to, and it's like a simulation that law students can do and law professors can use in their classes. And it's basically a software that uses an algorithm to determine whether or not people should be detained or released on bail. And at that point, I was just fascinated. But when I was even more fascinated was when the state that I was practicing in adopted this about, I think, maybe 6 months ago. And they said, yes, judges need to be using this software. And I think when we get to that point where judges are using software to reach their decisions or are allowing the software to make the decision for them, I think that we're at a territory where in order to ensure that due process is met, students need to have enough context to know how to argue it. And so, I think it was Harvard that came up with that simulation, but it was brilliant.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a question that I already know the answer to. You're supposed to do that as a lawyer, right? But I mean, knowing Dean Smith, Sean, knowing I've met you a number of times now, but was there ever any question in your mind about whether it's the law school's role to be teaching technology or whether that's, no place for that in the law school curriculum?
No, I mean, I think with the dean, I mean, he's always focused on this, be looking towards the future for our students. And I don't think we can cover everything, right? But I think we can give them a leg up. And I think certainly the students want that and want to be prepared for it. And, I think they realize that they need to have a little bit more to kind of have an advantage when they go out into the world. And so I think for us, I mean, Dean Smith has always wanted to, he wants to try new things. And I think for us, we've thought that this is a great place to be moving forward so that our students are prepared for the future.
Do you foresee a point ever at which assessment of technology skills becomes part of the qualification to become a lawyer?
Ooh, that's interesting.
I think over time,
put you on the spot.
Yeah, I think over time there has to be something, right? I mean, I guess we've been having this debate whether in the legal research world, whether legal research should be on the bar exam, and I think most of us think that it should because it's an important skill. And I think
and that's obviously part of technology competence, as you said at the outset of this discussion today. But
so I think eventually maybe it may be a ways down the road, but I think it's going to become an important skill that lawyers need to understand.
Yeah. You want to weigh in on that?
I think certainly if we want to elevate the bar, I think that would be a lot of motivation for people if it was a requirement. Just a lot of motivation there to learn these tech skills. And I think, the benefit would be that clients would be better served and you could bill for value rather than just billing for billables. And I think that that's a good thing. So I think there's potential. I don't know that it would be required. You
asked a little bit about, where we're going with this as well. I mean, one of the things we've thought about and we've just gotten a lot of feedback is that, lawyers are really interested in this. Our alums kind of hear about what we're doing and they say, well, what about us? And right now we don't have the capacity to help. We haven't focused on that yet, but we have that in our vision of, what can we do for our attorneys? Can we have CLEs? Can we create modules that will help them learn these different skills because they are out there in the practice and many of them want these skills and just haven't learned them yet.
Yeah. You probably know Suffolk Law School has its certificate legal technology program. I forget exactly what they call it, which is aimed at not just their alums, but any lawyer, in practice who wants to not just beef up their tech skills, but get a piece of paper that demonstrates that they beefed up their tech skills.
That's awesome.
And I think, more of that kind of stuff is needed, because there isn't actually, it's, other than for practicing lawyers, other than CLE programs and that sort of thing, there's just not a lot of stuff out there for them to learn. And there's a lot of need to learn. So, well, Sean and Tina, anything else you'd like to mention about this before we wrap up?
Well, I think I would just say, I think this is great for law students in general, just to have these skills. But I think it's also, we really want them to have these skills as well, so that people can go to them, right? When they go out into law firms, senior partners and others, that they can see them as someone that they can ask these questions to, and hopefully be influencers or in some way, even when they just come out of law school, if they have these skills and they can be seen as the person to go to for these skills, that will be a benefit to them in the long run and at their firms. And so I think there's some real benefit to law schools thinking about these things and how to have some kind of training program for lawyers in these areas.
Any final thoughts, Tina?
Yeah, just to echo that, I think that our students are incredible, and that their ability to do good is going to be just something to watch out for. And I think that the whole point of the tech trainings is just to enhance their skills so that they really stand out as attorneys and that they don't stumble over technology along the way. And so I think I'm just hopeful that they'll gain the skills that they need and that they'll go out into practice and really stand out.
Yeah. And actually, I've got one more question I did mean to ask you about before we wrap up, which is, I know a lot of other schools are looking at how to do a better job of preparing their students for, again, for practice in the 21st century, which includes technology. Any advice for a school that wants to begin a technology training for their students? Is there anything you feel in particular that you learned through this experience that would be useful for other schools to know?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been so helpful for us to have a dean that believes in this and that is looking towards the future for our students. And so that's been helpful because of the support and just kind of the environment that he's created around technology. And so while that's maybe hard to replicate in many places, I think that's an important part of it. I guess the only other thing I would say is that I think for us, it was fine to start small, right? We've started by looking at the legal technology assessment, and I had a lot of different ideas, but we wanted to get it off the ground going. And that was helpful to kind of get started, and we've continued to build. And as the momentum is built, students have shown their interest, then we've been able to do more and more and add this position. And I think it's okay to start small, and it may fail at first, but you keep going and try to continue to just build that program. Yeah.
Minimum viable product.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I think my advice would be that you don't have to know everything. I think people hear that you're a legal tech librarian and they expect that you can fix their computer and create a brief in like under 15 minutes. And you don't need to know everything. And for a school starting out, partnering, I think Sean partnering with the other library was a brilliant idea. And I think just bringing in people that know the subject matter, and that's really like a library role, is bringing in resources for students so that they have them and they have the access to the information. I just think being able to partner with different entities and partner with different resources that are available was really beneficial. And it also kind of takes the stress off of feeling like you have to know everything about every part of legal tech.
Well, Sean and Tina, thank you very much for sitting and talking to me on this beautiful day here in Provo. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much.
So this is Bob Ambrogi, and this is an addendum to the episode that you just listened to. I recorded that episode back on March 12th while I was visiting BYU Law School for some meetings. And I flew home the next day, March 13th, and just so happened that pretty much was the time when everything started to change dramatically. And as a matter of fact, on the day that I recorded the interview with Sean and Tina was the very day that the school was making the decision to put its classes online and send students home from campus. And so I thought it would be useful to just take a few moments to have an addendum to this episode to catch up with Sean and Tina, on what's happened since we talked. So it is now, as we are recording this, July 1st, 2020, a long 3.5 months since we actually chatted.
Feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
It does feel like a lifetime ago. Sad to say. I mean, it's amazing. On the other hand, it seems like it's gone by so quickly, but it does feel like a long time ago. We'll get back to my interview in just a moment. But first, let's take a break to hear from the sponsors who generously support LawNext. And now, let's continue this week's interview. So Sean and Tina, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks
for having us again.
Yeah. And how are you both doing? How's everything been going?
I've been doing pretty well. I mean, compared to a lot of other people, I have nothing to complain about. I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Yeah, the same. Doing great.
That's good. And Sean, I know you told me just before we started recording, you're actually in the law school building in Provo. You've been going in occasionally. Tina, have you been going in also, or are you working?
No, I haven't been going in. I've been working from home.
Good. And Tina, I was thinking of you in particular because I mean, this was your first year teaching, right? Or your first year working at the law school. What a year you picked.
That's right. A
little bit of a trial by fire, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. So, when we talked, you had been telling me about how you had been teaching students about technology in law practice. And, I just kind of wondering how that changed. As I said already, on the day that I was there, that was the day the decision was being made to go virtual and to send students home. So, Sean, maybe we can start with you. But I mean, what happened after we talked?
Yeah, well, we took a couple days to start getting things online, and then we started. I was teaching at the time just a legal research class and had to do that all online. That was an interesting experience, but it worked out pretty well, I think. And luckily for us, I think our semester ends a little bit earlier than others, so we just had 3 or 4 weeks of classes left. And I think at that time we started getting shut down everywhere, and jobs started disappearing a little bit, and people were worried about it. And one of the great things I think that happened, we've partnered in the past with our career services department, but they were really interested in talking to the students about, what could they do to prepare for kind of a recession in employment in the law fields. And so they touched base with Tina and got some information about the things that we were doing. And so we really kind of partnered with them a little bit in getting information out about some of the things we talked about in the first time we spoke, about the legal tech assessment and Pluralsight, some of the online trainings that could be done for the students. So we really started pushing that so that the students could do that as soon as they finished with their finals and kind of got out in that way. I think, Tina, you were doing a little bit more of kind of one-on-one training with students, if I remember right, at that time.
Yes, that's correct. At that point, it just sort of all went to one-on-one as needed. And then another thing that I think was really helpful for the students, Career Services and then Dean Smith, they both kind of identified that students might need training in remote desktop technology in order to carry out their internships. So right away, we got on board with having remote desktop training offered to the students, and we had an on-demand option thanks to Pluralsight for both Mac and PC, so that our students could really try to prepare for their internships as well. And I think that was a good move.
Well, that kind of answers what was going to be my next question, which is, did the pandemic cause you to change up your curriculum at all? And I guess you're saying it did, at least with regard to remote training.
Yes, it definitely did. I think the pandemic has also affected how we'll move forward. And so this next year, the university has announced in-person classes, but we still are anticipating that some law students might take online-only options for law school. And so what we talked about the last time we were all visiting together was the possibility of building modules to teach the students. And what we've been doing for the past 3 months is actually building those modules in order to make our trainings available anywhere at any time for these students through our BYU Legal Tech site. And so that's actually going out next week. And I think it's a great opportunity for the students to get their technology trainings in, no matter where they are or how they're working their way through the pandemic.
So are these modules around some of the specific topics we talked around last time, like practice management or document management,
Yes.
that sort of thing?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And also, one of the things we talked about last time was that in the first part of in the first half of the year, first semester of the year, you'd had hands-on training sessions with students, and I don't know if you had as much of that during the second half of the year. I may be confusing this now. It's been a couple of months, but how have you thought about whether you will continue to have the sort of hands-on tech training next year, or how will you pursue that? How will you approach that rather?
Yeah, so we're still talking that through. We're not quite sure what that will look like. We're hoping that we can have some sort of in-person option for students that are interested in having an in-person training, but we're not quite sure what that will look like yet. We know for sure that we'll have the online option, and then we'll also have live Zoom trainings as well, so that they, can have that live interaction and ask questions in real time. But we haven't figured out all of the kinks yet, and the in-person training is one of the ones that we're trying to figure out: how many students to open it up to, how many people we can have safely in a room, spread out and socially distanced. All of those types of questions are what we're still trying to work through.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about, I think, when we met the first time, we talked about, I think Tina talked about this innovation lab that we've been planning, and we started construction on that this summer. And so one of the nice things is we hope that it'll be ready for this upcoming year. And the nice thing about that room is it's flexible space. So we assume that if we want to do some classes together hands-on, that we'll have the space to do it, rather than we were using a smaller classroom that really probably wouldn't fit the number of people with social distancing that we'd want to have in there. So we are considering that for the fall.
Yeah. So what's that going to look like? What's that space going to be?
Yeah. So it's kind of, in a way, it was originally kind of designed after the kind of the D school up at Stanford that Margaret Hagen uses, some flexible space that have partitions that can be moved with lots of whiteboards and supplies so that it can be used for kind of a design thinking room. We anticipate something like LawNext might be in there, as well as other things that other initiatives that we try to do to help students kind of get their hands on and start working in some of the tech space.
Yeah, lots of Post-it notes.
Yep, lots of Post-it notes. That's right.
And so the school has definitely made the decision that you're going to have in-person classes next year. That part is that's a final decision.
Yeah, we are. It's a hybrid system, but we will have some in class. Although everything is subject to change, right? But right now they are looking for a hybrid, so we will have some in person and some online.
Yeah. And I realize you're not in session now, but I wonder in those, those remaining weeks of the semester when you were, whether you saw a change in attitude from the students about learning about technology, whether it sparked their interest even more, or whether they, had a different focus around it. What did you see in that regard?
I feel like I saw a mix. I think there were some students that really felt motivated to increase their technology skills and to make sure that they were ready for their internships. And I think that was the majority of students. But I do also think that there were students that felt overwhelmed. We all remember how difficult law school was. I can't even imagine going through law school and then at the same time having a global pandemic, grocery store shelves emptying out, your family spread out, and you're trying to deal with all of that plus law school. Right. So for those students where it was overwhelming, they didn't necessarily, we tried to make sure that the technology trainings, the message was sent that they're all optional and available for the students, but we also made sure to prioritize the students' well-beings above everything else.
Yeah. Do you think now in teaching technology or in preparing students for careers in law? I mean, I know that you guys were, it's like preaching to the choir. You already believed in the importance of learning technology as a fundamental aspect of preparing for a legal career. But do you think that takes on a new urgency now, or do you think you'll be teaching it differently next year than you might otherwise have taught it?
I mean, I think it takes on a new urgency. I think I think we have seen some of this with the students, but I also feel like, I mean, one of the things sometimes, we talk about attorneys getting into this stuff. Sometimes I think they weren't as on board, at least some of them. And I think this will push a lot of attorneys. They've had a chance now to experience Zoom meetings and more of doing e-signatures and things like that. And I think it's become a time where people have had to get their hands on technology, at least in some way. And so I think that will open a lot of lawyers up to trying some new things or realizing that technology can help them in their practice. And that, I think, will push some demand towards the law students. They'll want law students that are more tech savvy, or someone who could come in and help them, or kind of push some things in their firm. And so in my mind, that kind of helps us because the students will see it more from the attorneys than maybe they have in the past.
Yeah. Tina, you have any thoughts on that?
I would tend to agree. I think that, the court's going to remote hearings, remote appearances, having depositions over services like Zoom and WebEx. That certainly increased the need for technology skills. And then it also, I think, will show attorneys the efficiency that they can achieve through embracing technology skills. So I'm hopeful that it will create more availability of skills for attorneys throughout the field. I also think that it's given us the opportunity to reflect on our program and our program goals at BYU Law School. And I think that one thing that has really rung true is that the more skills that we can give to these students, the better it is, not only for them, but also for employers. It's tricky enough training a brand new associate all about law practice. But if we equip our students with all of these different skills and build our modules the way that we have, with really having it practice focused and giving them that context as if they're in a law firm, I really think that gives them an edge up and it solves that problem for the employer of having to train the students on their own during this pandemic, where it might be a remote training, and really allows the student to already go into their job with the skills that they need.
Yeah.
And along those lines, Bob, I'll just say one of the changes that we're making this year that we're going to try is that, we're going to focus a little bit more on incoming law students. So, first years that aren't first years yet, and provide them access to some of these things like the LTA starting in July. And the idea there is that, a lot of incoming law students often ask me, like, what can I do to get ready for law school? And we figure that this is a great thing to kind of get them started. You don't need to have a lot of legal knowledge for some of the very basics. And if we can give them some of these basic skills before they even come into law school, then we can do more with our program to provide them with additional skills while they're here.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to hold you guys too long because we've got a nice long interview already recorded, and this is going to be an addendum to that. So, but let me just ask each of you if you have any additional thoughts on this or other matters that you wanted to mention before we wrap up. Sean, anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, you asked me in the first part of this that, did I think that someday assessment of tech skills would be important for qualification for lawyers? And I've been thinking about that a little bit here because, in Utah, we now, for this year, are going to have the diploma privilege plus supervised practice, which was something that the Utah State Bar enacted. And I think that discussion is going to continue. And I thought about that more and thought, that could be a way where, we could have some more required tech competency training if states move towards this kind of diploma privilege plus supervised practice. You could require some technology trainings like Florida and North Carolina do for their attorneys. Maybe you do that for new attorneys before they come in. So I think there might be some, if we end up going that way in certain states, some ways that you could add in some of that assessment of tech skills.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's a great point. Tina, how about you?
Nothing in particular. I think I just agree with Sean. That would be really interesting to see that be adopted by states. And I know, Bob, that you keep track of how many states have adopted the rule. That would be really interesting to see how many states have actually adopted a technology requirement in their CLEs as well.
Yeah, well, the only 2 states so far have adopted that as a CLE requirement that I know of, except just today I saw news of New York State has adopted a CLE requirement around cybersecurity, interestingly enough. So they have to take a credit, I think it is, in data security and cybersecurity. That's interesting. But well, I'm glad you're both well, and I hope sooner or later I can get back out to Provo and see the place live again.
Always welcome.
That would be great. That would be great.
And I hope you guys have a great 4th of July and enjoy the rest of the summer, and look forward to seeing what you guys do next year.
Great. Well, thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot. That's all for this week. This is Bob Ambrogi.